Welcome to DoubleDM, the TTRPG talk show where we talk about tabletop role-playing games and how to be the best game master you can be. This week, we discuss the topic of game masters and players and the work everyone does for the table. Now, what does that mean? Well, this is a more ambiguous topic for us as we talk about a lot of little bits and things here and there. But mostly it's our episode about game master work you do for the table and where you, yes, you listening, are a great game master. In this episode, we will tell you why you are good and especially talk about all the work you do and how it is appreciated and how you can create better things for your players. So sit back, relax, grab a drink, and let's chat about making your TTRPGs better with this episode on why you are a great game master. For more information, see the timestamps in the description.
Hello and welcome to DoubleDM episode 89. With me, as per usual, is my lovely co-host Emil. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great today. It's been a very big week for me. There have been a lot of happenings, and I'm happy to finally arrive that Friday. Didn't think I would make it a few days.
Oh, okay, tell me about it.
So obviously no danger involved, just because the week has been very long. Monday started off great. Tuesday we had a Titans Call recording and we created Pathfinder characters for an upcoming Pathfinder one-shot. So that's been pretty great so far.
Loved both of it.
Yeah, but both have been great. And after that, Wednesday went downhill real quick.
Okay.
So Wednesday I was feeling kinda meh, but okay. Push through it, right? You do it and you live your life. I then wanted to go to Kendo. I packed my things, I went outside, and then realized that I had packed the wrong keys.
Oh no. Oh no.
So I locked myself out of my apartment.
Oh no.
As is very easy, I am not the person that then panics and does something irresponsibly like break open their own door, which I have seen people do in my own house so far. So yeah, no, I'm not that type. I just, okay, cool. Well, I won't go to Kendo now because obviously right after Kendo, it will be even harder to get into my house. So
yeah,
no. So what do? I decide to, okay, cool. I first message my parents because they have a second key. So if they are available right now, I'm just gonna get the second key from them and go back home and don't go to Kendo this week. Happens, not planned, but maybe I'm still outside for an hour, so same thing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, my parents messaged me, we can get you the key at this location at that time, just be there. I'm like, okay, cool, I will be there. I was there, talked to my father. The thing is that my parents went on vacation today, on Friday. So if that happened a week later, it would have been even harder to get that second key because I would have had to message friends of my parents who have the second key to their apartment, where I would then be able to get my second key. So that would have been fun.
It's the same thing for me. So that's pretty easy to get into my apartment if I lock myself out, because that shit happened. I locked myself out without shoes on. That was fun.
Oh, without shoes on. That's the... What did you do?
I just wanted to open the door to get a package. To take my package, and then the wind blew, shut the door, and then I stood there without shoes, without keys, without a phone, without anything, just a deck of cards in my hands, because that's what's in the package.
You can go far with a deck of cards.
Yeah, but it was raining outside, so just barefoot on the streets was fun.
So you just took off your socks and booked it through the streets, or what?
Yeah, I went to my grandmother like 5 minutes foot walk from here, but still, that was a journey, a mental journey. It's acceptable.
Right? It happens to you maybe roughly once every 6 years or 7 years that someone locks themselves out of their own house or own home. So paying that fee, especially if it's just opening an basically unlocked door, right? Because I didn't lock the door. It was just shut, and you can't open these doors normally when they're shut. So they would have just had to make one simple click in the lock.
Yeah, that's pretty cheap.
And that service costs like $20. Sure, it's not preferable because obviously you need to wait for the locksmith to get there and stuff like that, but really, $20?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
20 to 40 depends on the drive they have sometimes and stuff.
Opening a normal lock.
Yeah, that's fucking cheap.
Especially at a time where most people still work. It's not that bad for the locksmith because locksmith have to be 24-hour available.
Yeah, you have someone on call at all times, I think.
Yeah.
3 a.m. on a Saturday to Sunday night is gonna cost you a lot. This will be around $200 or something even more.
But it's only fair, really.
Yeah, I won't complain.
Not just locking it, but for example, broke off your key in the lock or something.
It's even more expensive. This is
right. The thing is, when I was at home and my parents were like, okay, we're gonna go meet some friends. You're alone at home, do whatever the fuck you want, as you do when you're 16 years old, right? And 5 minutes later, and here, ding dong, and I'm like, I didn't order pizza. Oh, well, it shouldn't have come this fast if I ordered pizza. Opened the door, my parents, we're not going. Oh, okay, what happened? Yeah, we broke the door. We wanted you to open it so we can get back in. And I was like, oh, a broken door. Replacing a lock and basically, not necessarily replacing, but repairing a lock on a Saturday. That's gonna cost you up to like €500.
Yep.
So that's unpreferable.
Yeah.
But especially if it's just a normal, like, door has fallen shut, I don't know what to do. Locksmiths are very cheap for that because it happens. And
it's not that difficult to open a only fallen shut door. If it's locked, it's a completely different story.
But I know for a fact that you can open your door, if it's a specific door, with your fucking credit card. And I know how to do that. If my door would be able to be opened by credit card, because it's so old I can't.
Same in my building, but yeah.
But I know how. So I could. But that only works, obviously, if the door is only fallen shut. If it's locked, that's impossible.
Yeah.
Because different lock clicks in most doors so far. And then you can't just click that thing open, that door mechanism. But you can. I could have maybe also, I don't know, gotten some wire somewhere and probably clicked the lock as well. I could have tried that. It's not that difficult, says the internet. That fact isn't reassuring.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you try it for the first time and then break the lock, this is gonna be very costly because then you have a broken lock and you have to call the locksmith, and then it's very expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But okay. TTRPG stuff. There is a lot to talk about, I would say. But I think we already talked a lot about keys and locking doors and that type of stuff. So I wouldn't want to talk too much about TTRPGs. But we have a new session coming up. Actually, 2. Very interesting sessions. 3, if you want to be more precise. We have 3 sessions coming up the rest of this week. Yep. First of all is this Friday even. So a few days ago, when you're listening to this, we played or will play Alice is Missing.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Which I am so excited for. I've wanted to play Alice is Missing since I first heard about it, and I get to finally play. I finally get the chance to play this game. It's always looked so fun. It's so interesting to me, and I cannot wait to cry.
Yeah, same. I just heard about it when our game master messaged me about it, and I was instantly hyped for it. I instantly knew I wanted to play this, most definitely, because it looks so much fun and interesting. It's a silent role-playing game thing where you chat with people about Alice that is missing. And mystery and stuff, it's amazing. It sounds amazing, at least.
Yeah, it is amazing. It's really. And the one funny thing is why I've been even more excited to play Alice is Missing. Alice is Missing is getting a movie.
Oh boy, really?
It's getting a movie.
Okay, cool.
You can look that up. I think was it a TV show? I think it's a movie. I think they're getting a movie, which is gonna be the first not D&D TTRPG that is getting put on the big screen. And I think this game has even more potential than D&D to be an actually good movie.
Yeah, fair.
Because I still don't know what to think about the D&D movie. I will probably watch it. I will probably enjoy it. But why do we need a D&D movie? Why, right?
Yeah. Could have been just a generic fantasy movie.
Which it is.
Yeah.
It's just using IPs that Wizards of the Coast have officially trademarked.
Yeah, we'll see about how it is.
Yeah. I mean, if it's good, I will watch it and I will like it. I have nothing against a good or even a mediocre fantasy movie.
Most definitely not.
I mean, all of the Lord of the Rings movies are mid at best because Middle Earth. And now I have offended everyone.
Yeah, you're gonna get so much hate for that. You haven't offended me, actually.
I mean, for real now, they're good movies, but they're also the standard for fantasy movies.
Yeah,
that makes them mid for me.
Yeah, they are the comparison material for every other fantasy movie out there.
And that just makes them mid, even if they're fucking good.
Yeah.
Because there are so many movies that are worse than them, but there are also a lot of movies that I think are just better than them because they take the concepts and just redevelop them into something I like more than, we're elf, dwarf, halflings, and weird wizard god and walk through fucking Mordor.
Yeah.
Oh my god. No, really, I enjoy Lord of the Rings a lot, but still generic fantasy.
Yeah, and now I'm gonna get hate. I think the movies are great, but I don't enjoy them. They are too long stretched for me.
I can watch them. They're good entertainment, but I just don't understand the unhealthy obsession some people have with Tolkien and his works.
Yeah, same.
But alas, I don't think we need to get into that.
Yeah.
If you like Lord of the Rings, all the power to you. I think that there are better things out there. But that's also just because the movies are old and the books are even older, right?
Yeah.
So also not necessarily take this as an offense against you and your whole personality or something.
Yeah, most definitely not.
But we also have other sessions coming up. I don't want to talk about the Pathfinder session because that is going to be an actual play episode on our podcast as well. But we can talk about the D&D session we also have on Sunday.
This is the continuation or the new story in the world where we got TPK'd.
Yes.
Session 2. Let's just hope we don't get TPK'd again, but...
If we get TPK'd again, that would be probably the best thing ever to ever happen.
That would be amazing, and an amazing story that we all will never forget.
I don't think that I can help the third character.
Yeah, no, that will be definitely hard.
So, what are you playing as?
I'm playing as a fighter, an Econite Dampier fighter. And again, a double character with another player, where we are both Dampiers and have sworn a blood oath to each other. There will be some weird shit.
If you're into blood play, that's your thing.
I am not, but the characters we are playing are most definitely into it. But yeah, the blood oath we both took is not just a role-playing thing. It has our DM came up with some mechanical things that this blood curse, how it's called now, has some benefits and detrimental effects to each of us.
I want to wait to hear about those. Oh, yeah, that sounds interesting.
Oh yeah, it most definitely is. But yeah, I'm excited to play that character actually.
I am also excited to play my character, but I don't know if they're gonna survive for long.
Yeah. So tell me, what are you playing?
I am playing as a warlock this time. I am playing a Hexblood Archfey warlock that has basically gone into the very I want to cast as many spells as possible direction, and not in the I just have the big fucking Eldritch Blast. I want to cast as many spells as possible.
So you're a hag.
I'm a hag. I'm a witch. I am, yeah. And I'm not gonna tell you too much about her, but she is the most severe case of scatterbrain you can ever think about. I don't think that she's ever gonna finish a full thought. She's just gonna say stuff, and it's either gonna make sense or not.
I like her already.
Yeah, no, but I think I can cast, except for my Wand of Magic Missile, which I also have, I can cast 8 spells per rest.
Okay.
Which is more than the cleric in our party can.
Yeah, but 8? Wow. Okay.
And we also need to take out Speak with Animals, which I can cast at will.
Okay.
So I can cast it all the time.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So yeah, I can cast basically a lot of spells.
Nice. Can't wait. But the Scatterbrain, I'm all here for it. I love it. This will be amazing.
She will be so amazing because I just have this very fun concept in my head and I can't wait to play it out. But yeah, I think with that, it's time for episode 89 of DoubleDM, which talks about comparing yourself to other GMs, comparing players versus GMs, and what work you as a GM and you as a player do for the table. We will see you after our mid-roll. Hey, dear listener, we arrived at this episode's mid-roll. I don't want to keep you too long in this break from the usual program, but podcasting overlords demand that I ask you to rate and review our show to help us expand our reach and get new listeners. But also with more reviews and ratings comes the benefit of us getting a better feel for what you like and dislike about the show, allowing us to improve our show to the next level just for you guys. And hey, if you really like the show, then recommend us to your friends so we can share our content with them and help them with whatever dungeon master dilemma or player problems they are having right now. I know you hear this all of the time, but really doing so helps shows like ours and any other podcaster, especially indie podcasters, out immensely in creating the best content possible. So again, rate, review, tell a friend or whatever works for you. If you are feeling super generous today, you can check out our Ko-Fi and donate a few bucks towards upgrading the show with new microphones, editing software, and studio surroundings. No pressure at all though, this is just if you feel like you want to help out. Lastly, I also want to tell you guys about our social media channels and that you can follow us on especially Twitter or Instagram to stay up to date with the show and get a whole slew of other content like memes, tips, and general shitposts about TTRPGs and the TTRPG industry or community. Thank you guys so much for your constant support of our show, and we hope we can continue creating amazing content for you guys well into the future. Oh, one last thing. If you have a TTRPG product you want to advertise on our show, contact us about affordable ad space on DoubleDM episodes, and we also have promo swap spaces available for other podcasters and shows. And with that, I have an advertisement for you, and after that, it's right back to the show. Do you want a lightweight, easy to use and free application for your tabletop role-playing campaigns? MasterScreen is the ultimate set of tools for running tabletop or online role-playing campaigns and managing intricate fictional worlds as well. This incredible browser application can run on any device and also works offline so you can edit your files basically everywhere. This awesome campaign manager allows you to level up your notes and organization so you have to spend less time in your notes and more time in the action of your games. The focus on the simple yet beautiful design makes for great and intuitive use for every tabletop role-playing game, and as time goes on there will be even more features to create a one-stop get-all for game masters wanting to level up their game. And remember, all of that is for the low price of free and requires no downloads. So go to masterscreen.app to start becoming the master behind the screen you were meant to be. You can find the link in the description.
So Emil, we both, as most of the time DMs, right? You're mostly a DM, right?
Let me check. Phantoms of Chaos, Sistera, Shadows of Analia, Titan's Call, Tyranny of Dragons, The Dark Eye. I'm actually 50-50 right now.
Oh, all right.
I'm at exactly 50-50 player, 50 DM. All my regular TTRPG games, right?
Mm-hmm.
But one-shots are mostly DM, so it's still more skewing into the direction of DM for me, obviously.
And for me, it's pretty similar, but it changes from week to week mostly because of scheduling. Usually, one week I only play, and the other week I only GM.
Yeah.
And that's something I wanted to talk to you about today, is the type of, let's say, jobs in quotation marks.
Mm-hmm.
What is a harder job, if you could say that? What is more important? Or is there anything even as a distinction between, is there one more important than the other?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I want to jump on the which one is harder part, because I think that's something that's going to get some people perking their ears or thinking to themselves, well, this is an obvious question. The DM does more work, or the game master does more work, right? That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to play the NPCs, the world. They need plot hooks. They need to put everything together. They need to make sure every player is happy, and they need to do this and combat and monsters and chill out. Obviously, no one is disputing that the DM does a lot of fucking work for a game. However, it does not mean they do all the work. And that's very important here. You can do all the work you want for your game. You can prepare world, you can prepare maps, you can prepare NPCs, you can prepare plot lines. It doesn't fucking matter until it hits a table with players eager to play in that world, with those plot lines, with those NPCs, NPCs in those combats.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter unless you have that game. If you want to prepare a world and write cool plot lines, you can write a fucking book, right? Then you do not need the players. And then that work is also good without players. But in TTRPGs, those that have a game master role and those that have player roles for that matter, then the game master can do a lot of work. It doesn't matter until that work hits the table.
Exactly. And I think that's exactly why it is hard to say which one is a harder job. One is a bit more work or a lot more work. But the other part of that is the player side is you have to engage in a meaningful way with the work the DM already has put out.
Yeah.
Because if there is just a world prepared and your players don't even fucking interact with it, that's not then your work is completely not necessarily lost, but you need another part to interact with it to make your work felt.
Yeah, I really think that GMs do more work. When I GM for the games that I do GM, I do more work in session and out of session. So if we want to go by the quantity of work done, the GM has a harder job. Not gonna dispute that. And I think everyone knows that.
Exactly.
Obviously, there are GMs that just go to a session and fly by the seat of their pants for 4 hours straight and go back home and don't think about the game until next week. There are people that do that. And that's why I think those people are a very good example for what I'm about to say. The work you do as a GM does not define your worth as a GM.
Exactly.
And the same goes for the amount of work you don't do doesn't define your worth, right? Improv GMs that do not do any work before a game session and just wing it by the seat of their pants are not worth more or less than those that prepare meticulous situation and scenarios, descriptions they can read to their players, and that prepare battle maps where the players get a meaningful, engaging combat or whatever. Both is valuable the same amount of time.
Yeah.
It works for the person playing, and with that, it has value. If you as a GM need the prep, that prep is never useless. No matter what anyone else says, your prep is never useless. Even if it doesn't come into the game. I will say, having that prepped, even though you didn't use it, it might come into use later. Then you just prepared ahead, which can be a bad thing, but doesn't have to be. I will say do not prep too much, just so you are open for what's going to happen. Because if you prep too much, you're kind of setting yourself on a path. And if you set yourself on a path, that can lead to problems when players interact with your game. But generally, all prep you do is done for you first and foremost.
Yeah, but about that a bit, let's talk a bit about the types of work that each side has to do. Because I think let's start with the GM first, because we already are on that train. And obviously you have to prepare a world, or either write your own, use a setting, or at least be familiar with it, so you can answer some questions about it, describe the world and all of that. Then you need to prepare some NPCs, or in general have some NPCs that your players can interact with as a window to the world. Then some plot lines. Then you have to manage where the characters are right now, where they want to go, what is happening elsewhere. Then in a combat you have to manage initiative, the enemy, the location, and depending if you use maps or not, have a map prepared, or if you don't use a map, know where everyone is fucking standing and keep that in mind. And I think especially in session, it's a lot more work because of the sheer amount that you have to keep track of.
I would agree, but I will say something that is completely antithetical to that. Because a lot of the things you said, knowing where everyone is standing, tracking initiative, for example, why can't that be done by a player? Right? Not saying that invalidates your point, because most GMs do that, but I will say that work doesn't have to be done by a GM. The things that do have to be done by a GM are the background workings. The monsters. The things players do not control need to be controlled by you. And now it comes to a thing for if you have a monster for your game, you might know the stat block, but you do not know the stat block as well as players normally do their character sheet if they had time to play that character. So you might need to take some time to read the spells that this creature has, right? If I look at D&D and I see a creature, a spellcaster that has like 15 spells on their stat block, I'm like, whoa, fuck no. Because then I become the player that everyone kind of jokes about that takes too long on their turn so they can read the fucking spells they have. Yeah, I need to do the same as a GM if I have a monster that casts spells. Hello? So, right, I don't like the memes of joking about the player that takes too long on their turn, because we never know why that is, and we shouldn't just equate them all to being dumb or not wanting to play the game or whatever. Sometimes I take long on my turns when there's a spellcaster involved and I need to learn what their spells spells do, so I know what they would do. My players have played their character every single encounter, every single game, every single session. They know their characters better than I do my monsters usually. Because I get the stat block, I read the stat block, I understand the stat block, but I do not have the stat block basically memorized like my players do with their rough basic actions. Sure, the wizard doesn't know all their spells, but he does know the 3 spells he casts the most. And that's a huge thing.
Exactly. They know what favorite spells to use because they used nearly every spell they got at least once.
Yeah.
So they know even if it's roughly, what a spell can do. And then they can decide, okay, I want to use something that does this. And then they check what spells can do this. And then decide what to use on the basis of their information that they got because they played this character for a longer time or more than once. And then can read the specifics when they decided on a spell. But if you have a monster as a GM with a spellcasting ability, sooner or later you will learn how spells work roughly, but still you have used that spell or that stat block once or are still using it for the first time. It's completely different than knowing what shit you have at your disposal that you can throw at them if you use this monster or the stat block for a couple of times.
Yeah.
For example, reoccurring villains that fight the party more often. This one you will know pretty well because you use it more than once.
Yeah. No, for example, one of my players plays a wizard, and he has a lot of spells. But he has one spell he really likes, Chromatic Orb, because it gives him a wide range of damage to use. And that's fucking good. And it does good damage. And he doesn't need to think on what this spell does. He just rolls the d20 because he knows it's to hit for the spell, and then asks me if he hits. And then he knows which damage types he can do and what damage the level he just chose equates to. He knows that spell. But if he has to cast Counterspell for the first time recently, for example, he doesn't know how Counterspell works necessarily. He has read the spell when he took the spell, but reading something for one time doesn't mean that you know it. At least for him it doesn't. And that's okay. He has used the spell now one time. I do not expect him to know the spell fully, but he knows now that he can use Counterspell as a reaction against another spell. So if he thinks that he should use Counterspell, he will just say Counterspell. No big thinking about it. But the same on his turn when he has to cast different spells than Chromatic Orb. Sure, he might not know the spells as well, but he knows the basics after he does it a few times. But that needs to happen a few times. So yeah, I think the thing about this single part of this discussion is just that a lot of things we say about players also go for game masters.
Oh yeah.
I think that's really one thing we need to say. If you say players take too long on their turns, well, how long do you take as a game master? Do you get more time? Sure, maybe you control 5 foes and your players only control 1. But normally in games of D&D, of Pathfinder probably as well, the players also get more options to choose from.
Oh yeah.
And if normally, right, the thing is that the player that takes too long on their turn is an outlier at best, in my opinion. That wizard player, for example, when we had a 4-round combat, 3 rounds of his were only like 20 to 30 seconds, and one of them was 2 minutes of him choosing the right spell for the occasion. That's still just 3 minutes divided over 4 rounds of combat, of complete time he took up. That's not a lot.
Nope.
I shouldn't shame that player into thinking that he just held up the whole combat. Obviously, my players sometimes take longer, and that's okay. And sometimes, yes, I as a GM, I will say this for your GMs, if your players do take too long, give them a signal that they should choose soon. I've read many takes over the years on this, that you should limit player turns by saying everyone only gets 30 seconds, so everyone gets the same amount of time and we get combats done quickly. If you want your combats done quickly, sure, do that, but talk about it with your players. If they get blindsided by this, I can tell you that they are out of the game very, very quickly.
Yep.
Then you will get the fast combat players. But do you want those players? Right? I don't understand why we need to make such a big fuss about, for example, combat turns, how long they take. Because oftentimes I as a GM also need to take a minute to think about what would be the best action here. And that's okay. At my tables, this has never been a problem.
Yeah.
Never ever. Sure, there were people that really, I had a player that took like 5 minutes for one of their turns, and I was like, okay, you need to make a decision here. Please do your turn because the others are waiting for you. But none of the other players were really that mad at the player, or I wasn't mad. It was just, okay, yeah, obviously you're kind of stalling the game right now, and that's not cool, but the player knows that. They know that themselves. Just talk to them, hey, make a decision now, or something. I have a system because when I GM, I kind of have a tick. I snap my fingers often, and often in rather regular intervals, especially in combat, when I'm basically tense for, okay, my foes, what does my foe do? How does my foe react to what my players are doing? I kind of snap my fingers. always 3 times. When I'm doing it, and it kind of in a roughly regular interval. And I kind of time the turns myself. 1, 2, 3. And after I snapped 3 times, I go, hey, maybe your turn is taking a little bit long. Remember that you're only 6 seconds in the game. Do something.
Yeah.
Do whatever, right? And my players know that, and they're okay with it, right? It's not pressuring them into doing something because they are dumb and don't understand the character, because I get it. You have a lot of abilities and a lot of options to choose from. Take your time reading those and take your time understanding those in combat and what they do. But also do something.
Yeah,
but
keep in mind that you're not alone at the table.
Yeah.
But no one is mad when you take a second to look up certain stuff and to make sure you're choosing the option that you want to choose.
Especially, one thing that I will say is if someone, right, I understand that people don't want to wait in combat, because a combat round can really take 30 minutes of the whole table going once. That happens. Yeah. What you can do as a player, if your turn takes longer, talk, say something. Don't just look at your character sheet and sit there in silence. If you talk, one of my players, for example, isn't that well versed in D&D. And when they look at the sheet and they go like, okay, I'm an artificer. I could cast Scorching Ray, or I could maybe also, if their mental dialogue becomes an external dialogue, everyone knows what they're currently going through. And
exactly.
And that's a big thing, because no one knows what you're doing on your turn if you're just silently sitting there.
Yeah, and again, as I always at least experience, for me, creative dialogue really helps me decide. Because when even if no one gives me existential input on that matter, but just with me talking about it, I get to the conclusion quicker most of the time.
Yeah.
Just because I talk about it. And again, if you take longer on your turn, it can be because you had a turn prepared, but everything went to shit because of one thing that happened. Yeah. This can happen in combat really fucking quick. And then you have to rethink your whole plan. And this might take more than 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine.
It's so fine, and it's never been a really big problem. I don't mind someone taking a little bit longer on the turn to get the action that they would think is the best action to take in this instance for their character. That's totally fine. Really, that's why I really do not like the discussion around players taking too long on their turns and we should limit them. Because, hey, I as a DM do the same. I also sometimes take longer when I look at spells from a monster or try to reread an action I just took, right? Okay, right? We have some actions in D&D, for example, that have like these blocks of text where I have to read what it actually does, and then I need to understand it as well. And that might take 30 seconds for me to understand what my player now needs to roll a Constitution saving throw at the end of their turn instead of the beginning of their turn, right? And those little nuances might get lost if I don't read the thing. We do not want these nuances to get lost.
Exactly.
I have to read it, so I have to take longer, and that's fine. As a table, everyone is fine with that. Why is everyone making such a big deal about this?
I don't know. And again, even if you have a monster that isn't as complex with blocks of text for abilities or spells galore or whatever, but you have just 4 different units on the table that have 4 different stat blocks, you have to look up every fucking attack, which one has which bonus and what effect to how much damage, what bonuses and whatnot, and reference every fucking stat block separately. And if you don't have them perfectly out in front of you, this may take some time.
Yeah.
Because you have to click around on your computer, you have to riffle through your notes or whatever. This just may take some time.
Yeah. So kind of going a little bit back from this discussion that is about turn-taking time, which is, I think, a very good discussion, because it kind of captures the spirit of this whole episode, which was about playing versus GMing kind of deal, right? Which one is harder, which one is easier? Because, again, I will agree, quantitatively, the GM does more work, right? They have to look up 4 stat blocks at a time in a combat. But qualitatively, I wouldn't say that it's such an easy understanding, because you cannot measure quality by just one of the 2 instances that make up a play of D&D.
Exactly.
The game master and the players. If you have one of them, but not the other, the quality and also the quantity of the work they have done for whatever they are part of the game is fucking useless.
Yep.
It doesn't matter that you have prepared a whole world or a whole story hook that is gonna be the next big thing that, right? It doesn't fucking matter if your story hook is the best one that ever was written on paper in 50 years. It doesn't fucking matter if you do not have a player that can engage with it.
Exactly.
And that's why it just doesn't matter to talk about the GM is more important than the players, or the GM is more worth than the players.
Yeah, these 2 jobs are just 2 sides of the same fucking coin. The coin can't be in existence without the other.
Yeah.
And they are just so completely different jobs to do. You have completely different angles on what to do and what to prepare for the session. Because I think as a GM, you should know what happened before. But I think especially in session, at least for me, it is more in the situation and a bit more future focused.
Yeah.
And as a player, I always prepare and look at my notes to see what has happened before and how does my character react to the things that happened in the moment. It's more of a past and present, and for me as a GM, it's more of a present/future thing.
Yeah, I can see that. I am again, because the word player itself is such a big thing. Same with the word GM. Both of these are just very big words. That's a very big word for Elmo, right? And what they basically say, because there are 100,000 different player types and 100 million different GM types or something, right? Basically just arbitrarily big numbers, because everyone is different in these roles. It's just hard to basically say the GM does more work, because maybe there's a GM out there that just creatively flies by the seat of their pants by what their players do, and one of the players takes all the notes and basically knows what happens. Wouldn't you say that the player that has basically a full book full of notes for this campaign, that the GM has not a single note written down on paper? You could make an argument that that player does more hard work. But again, the definition of hard work just doesn't fucking make sense in TTRPGs, because, there's many things to it, but one of the basics thing is it's a creative hobby.
Yeah.
You can't say the GM put in 10 hours of work, but that doesn't mean that those 10 hours worth of work will actually yield a good 4 hours of session.
Exactly.
Those 10 hours were just work put in, but just because of the time that was put in doesn't mean that the session is better.
Exactly.
Right? I've had sessions that were some of my best sessions I've ever ran were with much less prep than some of my other best sessions. So the amount of prep or the amount of work I put into my games isn't an equation to how good the session is, which is what we want. We want a good session. We don't want to do a lot of work, right? No one wants to pour 20 hours of their day into session work if they know it's not going to be worth it.
Exactly. And it's a combination of the two works put together. They work in tandem, because you need your players to interact with things you give them to make it worth the thing or the time you put into it, if you put in any time. Even if you don't put in any time. If you completely improvise your shit, you need still the players to make the improvisation worth it. No matter how good you are at improvising, if your players don't interact with anything or don't care about anything, it's useless.
Yeah,
sadly.
Kind of.
And the same goes for prepping. If you write a complete world with history and culture and all of that, if your players don't use that information that you have, this is useless for this session.
Totally.
But the same goes for the other side. If you're a player and want to interact with everything, but your GM doesn't let you, your eagerness is even so worthless, sadly. That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's why it's hard to define which is harder or which is not.
TTRPG work is just working together of two sides. And even then, the thing is, right, the GM screen has become this arbitrary border on the table. At the end of the day, you're all really just players playing a game. One of you takes a role that by the book is supposed to prepare world, control enemies, control NPCs and all of that stuff. And that sounds like a lot more work, and it is, again, a lot more work. But it doesn't mean that you as a GM are more worth than your players.
Exactly.
I think many people obviously know that GMs shouldn't set themselves up on a high horse or on a golden horse and think that they are the best just because they GM games. Because my players always thank me, for example, my players always thank me when I GM for them. They think, hey, thank you for the 4 hours. It was a lot of fun. Thank you. But I thank them as well.
Yeah.
Because I had just as much as fun as they did. And without them, I also wouldn't have had the work I put into these 4-hour sessions would have been worthless.
Exactly.
So, yeah, the point is very much clear that while, yes, GMs do more work, the discussion around who does more work is useless.
Exactly.
It just doesn't fucking matter, and we should, I don't have really much fun engaging with that type of discussion when we're going off who is more worth it, who does more work. It just doesn't fucking matter to me who does more work, because yes, on the paper, the GM probably does more work, but it doesn't matter. Players do also do work, right? The thing is, even if your GM does a lot of work, if you're a GM that does a lot of prep, does a lot of meticulous map making and stuff like that for your game, and the game is great, that might be your work you put in probably has played a big part in that the session is good. but it isn't the sole reason, because if it would be, you wouldn't need players.
Exactly. And I think especially for everyone to recognize this, I always encourage every player to at least DM once in their lifetime, to see once behind the curtain, to say it like that. Because if you know the other side, you know that this question is completely bonkers to ask. Or if you are only a GM, play for once, because then you know the difference between those two jobs, and that these aren't the same, that they are just completely different worlds while still contributing to the same product.
Yeah.
An amazing session.
Yeah, right. It's you're working on the right. You're working on the same side by doing two different things.
Exactly.
For the game to work. And I also encourage people that have only played to GM, because it's basically just dropping the curtain. It's not even just peeking behind it, it's just dropping the curtain. Because most people that have never GM'd and are part of my player group, for example, I think all of my players that I have currently also have GM'd once in their life so far. So they all kind of know how it is behind the screen. But for example, one of them was very scared when they became a GM or wanted to GM their first time. They reached out to me several times throughout weeks before the session of, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I say, I just do it, right? I obviously had very good advice for her, in my opinion, good advice at that point of focus on your players, go with it, pull with the punches and all of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Sure, right? Good advice. But oftentimes when she asked me something that was very much something that I didn't even consider for myself, I just said I did it. Because it never came up on my radar that would be part of my work. And that's why every GM is different, right?
Exactly.
We all think about different things. We all need to prepare different things. We all work differently on our games. And every GM style itself is not a bad GM style, right? That's the reason why we also cannot really compare notes. We can compare the length of notes and the amount of notes made. But you never know what the notes actually are. Is someone writing a text? Are they writing bullet points? Are they writing overarching plot things? Are they writing a plan a villain takes step by step? All different things. And they will all take different length to maybe equate to the same thing in the game.
Exactly. And I can only speak for me, because when I GM, I only use bullet points, and I use a lot less than I do when I take notes as a player, because I write down what happened in the session in rough bullet points because I experienced it, blah, and all of that. I have it better in my head because I know what I had planned for that session and where it is roughly going. So I can piece it together better if I use only bullet points than write everything down, because that takes time away from the things I have to keep track of in the session itself.
Yeah.
But as a player, I can focus on my character and write down the notes that I want to write down. And don't want to miss anything as a player. I always take notes, a fucking shit ton, you could say. Roughly, if I write on paper, roughly around 2 pages worth of notes per session most of the time, because every minute detail I write down. But as a GM, I mostly don't, because I have that prepared beforehand or not, depending on what the situation is.
Yeah.
And then as a player, for at least in the campaign that I played yesterday, I also make a journal written by my character. I write that in character to get a better feel for my character, to better envelop or develop the feelings of that character for me, so I can play that character better.
Yeah.
Is that more work as a GM? I don't know. Is it better work as a GM? I don't know. And I'm not in a position to say, because it works for me. For me, it's worth it because it works for me.
Right, that's the right thing. It works for you. And that makes the work you do worth it. And the outcome, the reward, right? Sometimes the outcome isn't what you necessarily wanted. Sure, everyone has bad sessions. Every session can go sideways, but that doesn't mean the session is necessarily bad at all. It just was different than you expected. And that can destroy some fun, but overall, you might still have fun in your session. Everyone finds their own style and defines their own worth that way. And yeah, there isn't really much to say to that, right? And that's one of the big things that I think a GM needs to do for themselves. Find their own style and define their own worth. You're always worth it. Just saying, putting that out there, right? You're always a good GM. Because sure, you had a bad session. A bad session doesn't make you a bad GM. It just makes you had a failure in that session. And even then, it probably wasn't a failure. You just feel like it was one. We have an episode on that. Go to that if you want to know more about how to deal with failure and how to deal with mistakes and all of that stuff. But that's not part here. But right, the thing is you make everything for yourself because TTRPGs are inherently unique to the person doing it hobby, right? I do Kendo in my free time as well. And Kendo has written down rules for how you need to fight. I need to hit someone at the right angle on the head while screaming my lungs out, while stomping my feet on the ground, and then pushing them away or walking through them basically, while holding that scream and the sword in a position that equates to a point to win. And that's all we train. How often in the 1.5 hours I have training a week of Kendo do I hit someone the right way? Because that's the way I learn, right? We were training to be fighters in this. And that's the thing. There is only one right way to do Kendo. Or well, obviously there are many different ways to do the same Kendo, but you still need to get the same points as everyone else. You still need to hit someone on the head. It just doesn't change that way. In Kendo, there are only 4 different ways you can make a point. A hit to the head, a hit to the wrist, a hit to the stomach, rib cage area, or a little bit below that rather, or a stab to the throat. That's the only 4 ways you can make a point in Kendo. And those things do not change. And every fighter gets measured by how good they can hit those 4 points. You can define your worth by how many points you can make in Kendo, because that's how it is. But TTRPGs don't work that way. You cannot define your worth because the inherent thing you want is fun. Obviously, I also want fun from Kendo, but still, it's a sport. It's a competition. I want to be good at it. But in TTRPGs, I am inherently good at it as long as I'm having fun with my friends. So it's very hard to define worth, other than I am worth it, and I am good at this. And you need to say that to yourself, because you are.
Exactly. Because especially for these things, there isn't a set-in-stone metric that you can reference to see if I had fun or not. It's a feeling, and you can't measure feelings. And that's why it's also hard to define when you had fun or whatnot, because there is nothing to reference it to, just feeling you have. And that in comparison to Kendo, where you have a set rules, this needs to be done to get the points, the amount of points you need to win. And in TTRPGs, you need to have fun to win, in quotation marks. But how can you get there? It's different for every fucking person.
Yeah, right.
You need to find your style as a player, as a GM, and as everything in between.
And right, that's just at the end of the day the thing there is to it. It's just impossible in TTRPGs to compare yourself to others. As a GM to a player in the work you do, as a player to the GM in the work you do, because it just doesn't fucking matter. You do different works and both are needed. And you cannot say that one of them is systematically proven to be more important than the other. Because if you do, right, if you're going around telling people that the work they do is invalid and not necessary, they will stop doing it for you. If you tell your players they are not worth it, well, good luck finding players. Because that's not something anyone wants to hear. And that's the thing. And even if you're going outside your own table and start comparing yourself to other GMs, right? Comparing yourself to Matt Mercer, Abria Iyengar, Brennan Lee Mulligan, or whoever else. Sure, I'm gonna be the first to say it. A good bit of healthy comparison is good for you. But stop thinking to yourself that they are the epitome of game mastering and you need to do as they do, right? The Matt Mercer effect is complete and fucking bullshit. For example. But right, you just need to stop comparing yourself to others and accept that you're just a good GM.
Exactly.
And I will say it. I will put it out there. This episode will be titled, You're a Good GM. Because you fucking are. Sure, you might make mistakes. Sure, you might be at the beginning or at the newbie level in quotation marks. Doesn't fucking matter. You're a good GM. You just need to accept it.
As long as it works for you and your table, you are a good GM, period. If it doesn't work, you're still a good GM, but not for that group. You have to look for another. Or if you're having problems at the table as a player, look for another group. You are a good player or a good GM, you just have to find the right persons to be a good player or GM with.
And right, there's one way to not be a good player, and that's by being an asshole, or a good GM, that's by being an asshole, right? We talked about that a few times already, but right, just be a good fucking human being, and you will be fine playing TTRPGs. Be accepting, inviting, friendly, and respecting to other people, no matter who they are. And right, you will have a good time in your life as well. Don't be a racist, bigot, turf, whatever. Don't be a fucking dick. And you should have a good life. That's the first step, not just in TTRPGs. And some people fail at the step very, very fucking hard.
Mm-hmm. But as we always say, these discussions are always made in the assumption with good faith. They all want to have fun. That's where our ground rules are, or our ground for this discussion is. Because if one doesn't want to have fun with the others, fuck that, kick them out and be done with it.
But there's one thing I wanted to talk about since we kind of said you're a good GM. And I want to talk about this just quickly because we both do not have a good perspective on this, I would say. But pro GMing is still something different than being a good GM, I would say. Because pro GMing is a service. It's a valid service. It's a valid profession. I want to say that right up front, right? If you're a pro GM, first of all, fucking heck yes, congrats to you. And second of all, if you think that pro GMs shouldn't exist, fuck you. Pro GMing is still something different than just being a good GM by your own standards. Because if you're getting paid for something, I would say then you should have a standard for your game. As too much as right. People are paying you to deliver a good game, a good service. And if you are making the jump to pro GMing, first of all, I will encourage you to do it because, right, I do not know necessarily much about pro GMing. I just know a few pro GMs from Twitter or something, and I know that they are all very cool people. And, right, I don't know which steps they took and which steps they would recommend you take because I don't know. I have not looked into becoming a pro GM, so I don't know which steps to take. I am not a pro GM, but I will say that pro GMing is something different than just being a good GM for a home game. At least I would assume that, right? Still, you're still delivering your style of play, your game. You're still delivering a game and still might do the same prep or no prep at all for your game as you would do with your home games. But I think there's a different essence in being paid for what you do on a basis of really making money with this and not just being paid the pizza from your friends because you GM'd the night or something for them. I could be completely wrong, I will not lie, but I think just that pro GMing is still something different than just saying I'm a good dungeon master. That's still the first step. You still need to accept, right? If you want to become pro GM, the first thing you need to accept is that you're a good GM as well.
Exactly.
Because right, normally people wouldn't consider taking money for the services unless they think they are good at it. So, right, you're a good dungeon master, and that's the first step to becoming a pro GM. So every one of us that has played a TTRPG has made the first step into becoming a pro dungeon master, you could say, at least in my opinion. Because you need to be a dungeon master to become a pro dungeon master.
Exactly, and I would totally agree. And I think, but like you said, there is a difference between just being a good dungeon master and being a pro dungeon master. And I think most of the time it is the feeling at the table because of the you getting paid part. If you're playing with your friends, it's a completely, or for example, if you help with someone moving, if you help your friends move, it's a completely different feel than if you help someone move that paid you to do it. And I would argue, I don't know for sure, but I would argue it's the same with GMing.
Yeah, I would say so as well, right? The thing is, I can just move with my friends and the move will still go rather smoothly. But paying someone that knows what's up, knows their shit about the stuff, I just kind of expect them to do a good job as a player. And the thing is, from experience of being 9 years as a player in different games, GMs normally do deliver a good job for me. And I'm not gonna lie, if I pay for someone's incredible game and it's worth it, I will pay again. And I think most GMs that are on, for example, Start Playing are fucking worth it. While yes, I can do that all for myself at home, but still, they are fucking good at it, and they should get paid for it. Same with movers, right? I'm not saying that being a professional moving company isn't involving training and, right, lifting heavy objects requires a lot of knowledge on how to do it correctly, right? You can break your bag if you lift with your bag. Don't do that function, but that's just the first step once again in that direction. There's a lot more to it, and I think that's the same for Start Playing. These people learned how to be good for everyone or for most people at their tables, and that's a whole fucking different skill than being good for your friend group.
Exactly.
And I think, that's kind of the skill I'm paying for pro GMing is I kind of pay for consistency, I would say, because when I pay for a service, I want consistency in that service. But that's me. But generally, pro GMs are pro GMs because they are good GMs for basically everyone. Because they can run a game for everyone that those people are willing to pay for. And that makes them pro GMs because they can make money, because they can GM for the people that give them money. And that's the deal of it. And if you're one of the people that doesn't think that pro GMing should be a profession, you're probably just one of the people that doesn't have what it takes to be a pro GM. Fuck you. It's so fucking disgusting to me that people think that pro gaming shouldn't be a profession. Because yes, you can do it for your friends, but that doesn't mean that other people can't do it for money.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the movers. If you think that professional GMs shouldn't be a profession, well, I hope you will do the moving for your friends without taking money for it, so they don't have to pay a moving company for that, because while obviously the things are not necessarily that good of a comparison, it works.
Yeah,
right?
In this case, it definitely works. Yeah.
They are professionals. Obviously, you want them to do the stuff for you. Why, if you think that the profession shouldn't exist, then please do help your friend move and lift that couch instead of the 3 paid people to do it. I want to see that.
Yeah, pick up the fucking fridge and carry it to the 4th floor alone,
right?
Or hire professionals to do it for you. Oh wait, professionals get money. Oh yeah, that's weird, right?
Okay, yeah, right. Again, topic of this episode was kind of comparing each other and how comparison is completely useless in TTRPGs. There's a healthy dose of it. It's really much the overdosing of comparing things that are completely ridiculed to compare. But I think we can do a whole episode on comparing each other, on comparing things in TTRPGs, or comparing yourself to pro dungeon masters or pro famous dungeon masters. I'm not gonna say pro dungeon masters, I'm gonna say famous, even though they might make their living off of that, right? There's a healthy dose in comparing yourself to Matt Mercer or Abria Iyengar or Brennan Lee Mulligan or whoever else, right? Or players, Lou Wilson, Marisha Ray, whatever. There's a good healthy dose in comparing yourself to these people, but you shouldn't do it too much.
Exactly.
But we will get to that in a different episode. For this episode, only thing that really needs to be said is you're a good dungeon master and stop being a dick.
Exactly.
Could be said in every episode. No, but I think there's more to this discussion than just those 2 sentences, but they sum it up.
The essence.
Yeah.
With that, if you don't have anything else to talk about, I don't either, so as per usual, you can find us on our socials on Twitter and Instagram at DoubleDMPod, or you can visit our website at www.doubledm.com. We also have a Ko-Fi if you would like to check that out, and please, if you like the show, leave a rating on your favorite podcast listening platform of your choice. And with that, thank you for listening. Hear you on the next one, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.